never expected to wake up to a moving truck in my driveway. The sound jolted me awake that Saturday morning, strangers' voices and heavy footsteps on land I'd sacrificed 9 years of my life to own. My heart hammered against my ribs as I peered through the bedroom window, watching men unload furniture while my sister-in-law Ashley stood in my front yard, pointing and directing like she was the queen of a kingdom she had no right to claim. "The couch goes in the living room," she called out, her voice carrying that entitled tone I'd grown to recognize but never thought would be used to invade my home. In that moment, standing there in my pajamas with sleep still clinging to my eyes, I felt something inside me harden. A boundary I didn't even know I needed was being trampled, just like the flower beds I'd spent years nurturing to life. But this story doesn't begin with betrayal. It begins with dirt under small fingernails and a little girl who could see possibility where others only saw weeds. I'm Violet, and I've never followed the expected path. While other kids huddled around screens, I was on my knees in my mother's backyard, mesmerized by the miracle of seeds transforming into something beautiful. My parents would exchange glances over my dirt-smudged face. "She'll grow out of it," they'd whisper when they thought I couldn't hear. "She'll want normal things eventually." But normal never called to me. When I turned 18 and announced I wanted to study landscaping and horticulture, my mother's face fell like wilted petals. "Are you sure you don't want to be a teacher?" she asked, her voice carrying that particular strain parents use when they're trying to mask disappointment. "Or maybe a nurse. Something more suitable for a young woman?" The way she said suitable made it sound like my dreams were somehow improper, as though wanting to create beauty with my hands was something to be ashamed of. But I persisted. In those classrooms, learning about soil composition and plant diseases, I felt at home in a way I never had before. While classmates complained about dirt under their nails, I felt most alive with earth on my skin and the sun warming my shoulders. After graduation, I worked for other landscaping companies, watching bosses cut corners and rush through jobs that deserved care. They'd install cheap plants destined to die within a season, skip crucial steps that would cause problems later. Every shortcut they took felt like a personal betrayal to the craft I loved. At 25, I made the decision that terrified me to my core. I emptied my savings account and started my own company. That first year nearly broke me in ways I still find hard to describe. Instant noodles became both breakfast and dinner. My truck rattled and protested each morning, held together more by determination than mechanical soundness. I rotated between the same 3 work shirts until the fabric thinned and tore at the shoulders. There were nights I curled into myself, crying silently into my pillow, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. The doubt would creep in like frost, threatening to kill the dream before it had truly taken root. I did everything alone, designed marketing materials at midnight, balanced books until my eyes burned, hauled stones in soil until my muscles screamed. Friends stopped calling after my 100th "I can't afford it" or "I'm working late." My social life withered while my calluses grew thicker. But slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. My first clients' eyes would widen when they saw their transformed spaces. "You really listened to what we wanted," they'd say, sounding almost surprised. Word spread through neighborhoods like wildflowers after rain, not the fastest way to grow, but the most sustainable. I wasn't the cheapest option, but I did quality work that would last. I planted with future seasons in mind, creating gardens that would mature and evolve rather than quick-fix landscapes that looked good for a month. By 28, I finally hired my first part-time assistant. For the first time since striking out on my own, I felt the ground beneath me solidify. That's when I started dreaming about a home, not just any house, but one with enough yard space for me to create something truly mine. House hunting broke my heart a dozen times over. Everything decent was snatched up by dual-income families or investors with deep pockets. I was just one woman with dirt-stained hands and a small business trying to compete in a market that wasn't built for people like me. After 50 property viewings and countless disappointments, I found it, a modest house on the edge of town with a backyard that had been completely neglected. The house itself needed work, peeling paint, outdated kitchen, creaking floors, but it had good bones. And that backyard. Oh, that backyard spoke to me in a language only another gardener would understand. Where others saw weeds and dead shrubs and a lawn that was more dust than grass, I saw canvas. I saw potential. I saw my future unfolding in seasons of bloom. The mortgage payment stretched my budget to its breaking point, but I convinced myself I could make it work if I kept growing my business. When they accepted my offer, I danced alone in my empty apartment, laughing and crying at the same time, drunk on the possibility of finally having roots of my own. Moving day remains one of the purest joys I've ever experienced. The house wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen straight out of 1983, but walking through those rooms, I felt a sense of belonging I'd never known before. I immediately threw myself into transforming the backyard. Every spare minute became precious, client jobs by day, my own garden by night. I'd work until my arms trembled and my back ached, often finishing by flashlight when the sun had long since set. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Nature doesn't rush, and neither did I. First came the clearing, pulling invasive weeds, removing dead plants, testing the soil to understand what it needed. Then came the design, sketching pathways, planning spaces for different seasons, thinking about how light moved across the yard throughout the day. Within 2 years, that barren patch had become something magical. I'd created different zones, vegetables in raised beds that caught the morning sun, flower gardens that bloomed in carefully orchestrated succession so there was always color, herbs right outside the kitchen window where their scent would waft in on summer breezes, and a small pond where fish flashed like living jewels beneath lily pads. Sometimes I'd sit on my little patio at dusk, watching the garden settle into evening, and think to myself, this is what happiness feels like. Not the bright, explosive kind they show in movies, but something quieter and more sustainable, like good soil, holding life. Then something happened that I still can't quite believe when I think about it. Flipping through a gardening magazine one day, I noticed they were hosting a contest for small landscape design. Without any real expectation, I took photos of my garden and submitted them. My little backyard creation competing against professional designers with budgets and crews and equipment I could only dream about. But even with this recognition, I never lost sight of my main goal, paying off that mortgage as quickly as humanly possible. Every extra dollar went straight to the principal. I drove that same beat-up truck, patched my work clothes instead of replacing them, and said no to vacations and dinners out and all the small luxuries that most people take for granted. My friends thought I'd lost my mind. "You're finally doing well, Violet," they'd say. "Live a little. Buy yourself something nice for once." But I had a plan, and I clung to it with both hands. I worked 60-hour weeks, took on every job I could physically handle, and made payment after payment on that mortgage. It wasn't easy. Some nights I'd scroll through social media, seeing friends on tropical beaches or showing off new cars, and a hollow ache would open up inside me. Was I missing out on life? Would I regret these years of sacrifice? But then I'd walk through my garden at dawn, dew dampening my shoes, the first birds beginning their songs, and I'd remember why I was doing all this. This wasn't just about having a house, it was about security, independence, creating something that truly belonged to me and no one else. Now, at 34, I had finally reached that goal. The house was completely mine. No bank owned any part of it anymore. The feeling was indescribable, like I could finally exhale a breath I'd been holding for 9 years. I knew I wanted to share this milestone with my family. My older brother Chad is 37, married to Ashley for a decade. They have 2 boys, Tyler, 11, and Noah, 7, who I adore despite their tendency to trample my carefully tended flower beds when they visit. They've always struggled financially, living in a cramped rental apartment that seemed to shrink as the boys grew. I'd been helping them for the past 3 years, covering their rent when they couldn't make it. It wasn't easy on my budget, but Chad had supported me when I was starting my business, loaning me money when I couldn't afford basic equipment. Family helps family, that's what I believed. Ashley would often drop the boys off at my place on weekends, her eyes scanning my living room with an expression I couldn't quite name. "Must be nice to have all the space," she'd say, her voice dripping with something that felt like accusation. "The boys could really use a yard like this to run around in." I'd smile and change the subject, but her words would linger like a shadow after she left. A week after making my final mortgage payment, I splurged on an expensive chocolate cake and a good bottle of wine. I planned to announce my news at my parents' house during the regular Saturday family dinner, a celebration of years of sacrifice finally bearing fruit. When I walked into my parents' house that evening, Tyler and Noah were already absorbed in video games in the living room. I placed the cake and wine on the dining table, feeling a surge of genuine pride that I rarely allowed myself to indulge in. "What's the special occasion?" my mom asked, eyeing the fancy cake with curiosity. "I have some news to share with everyone," I said, unable to keep the smile from my face. My mom waved her hand dismissively. "Everyone needs to eat first." Throughout dinner, Ashley dominated the conversation with complaints about their landlord raising the rent again and how cramped their apartment had become. My parents nodded sympathetically, offering the right supportive words at all the right moments. Finally, I managed to get everyone's attention. "My news is that I finally paid off the mortgage on my house. It's completely mine now." The table went silent, the kind of silence that has weight and texture. I could hear the beeping of the boys' video game from the living room, but at the table, everyone seemed frozen. My mother broke the silence first. "Oh, well, that's nice, honey." Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a script she didn't believe in. Chad just grunted and kept eating. Ashley's face cycled through expressions so rapidly I could barely track them: surprise, then something that looked like anger, then a smile so false it made my skin crawl. "Well, congratulations," Ashley finally said, but the word sounded sharp enough to cut. "But honestly, it doesn't seem fair. You don't have a husband and children like we do. You're lucky you could get your own house while we're stuck in a rental with kids." The heat rose in my chest, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Actually, I wasn't lucky at all. I worked incredibly hard to build my company, buy this house, and pay off the mortgage. I sacrificed everything for 9 years. Ashley suddenly threw her fork down on the table with a loud clang that made everyone jump. "Your family, Violet. That means your house is family property. Chad and I can claim that house." I stared at her, genuinely shocked by the twisted logic and pure arrogance of what she just said. "It's my personal property. No one else has anything to do with my house." But Ashley wouldn't let up. She started sobbing dramatically, and I mean dramatically, like she was auditioning for a soap opera, and turned to Chad. "Your sister is being so selfish. We need to think about our children. Tyler and Noah need to grow up in a house with a yard, not in this cramped apartment." Chad nodded slowly. "She has a point, Violet." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I turned to my parents, expecting them to defend me and set everyone straight. Surely they'd see how ridiculous this was. But my dad spoke up. "Ashley's right, honey. They need the house more than you do." My mom nodded in agreement. "You have to think about the children." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Where exactly do you think I should live?" "We'll move into your house," Ashley said matter-of-factly, "and you can rent an apartment or something." Chad jumped in. "You earn good money, Violet. You have a high income. You'll be able to buy a new house quickly." Then the three of them, Chad, Ashley, and my parents, started talking among themselves like I wasn't even there. They began discussing how wonderful it would be when Chad and his family moved into my house. They talked about which room would be Tyler's, how Ashley could finally have a proper kitchen, how great the garden would be for the kids. "The living room is so much bigger than what we have now," Ashley said excitedly, her tears magically gone. "And that garden Violet built, the kids would love it," my mom added. I sat there, fork suspended in midair, listening to them plan out their takeover of my life, my home, everything I'd worked for. They were dividing up my house like I was dead, and they were reading my will. A coldness settled in my stomach, replacing the warmth of celebration I'd felt earlier. These people, my own flesh and blood, couldn't even pretend to be happy for me for 5 minutes before trying to take what was mine. I couldn't take another second of it. I slammed my hand on the table so hard that the plates jumped. "I am not giving my house to anyone." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "It's my property, my hard work, my sacrifice. This has nothing to do with any of you." Everyone stared at me like I was the crazy one, like I was being unreasonable for not wanting to hand over my home to them. I grabbed my purse and the wine bottle I'd brought. "I can't believe you people." "Violet, sit down," my dad said sternly. "We're just trying to do what's best for the family." "What's best for the family?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "What about what's best for me?" What about the fact that I worked myself to the bone for this? Ashley was still crying her crocodile tears. Think about Tyler and Noah. They're your nephews. I've been thinking about them for 3 years while I paid your rent, I shot back, my voice breaking with emotion. I headed for the door, but I could hear them continuing their conversation behind me like nothing had happened. She'll come around, I heard my mom say. She just needs time to think about it. The house really would be perfect for us, Ashley said, her tears magically gone again. I walked out and slammed the door behind me. As I got in my car, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. These people, my own family, had just tried to steal my house from me. They'd turned what should have been one of the happiest days of my life into a nightmare. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and tears. I kept replaying the conversation, trying to figure out how it had gone so wrong so fast. How could my own parents think it was okay for me to just hand over my house? How could Chad sit there and nod along while his wife demanded my property? As soon as I got home, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Call after call from my family. I ignored every single one. Then the text messages started flooding in. From my mom, Violet, you're being very selfish. Family comes first. Call me back. From my dad, your mother is upset. You need to apologize and do the right thing. From Chad, stop acting like a child. We need to talk about this reasonably. From Ashley, I can't believe you would put your own wants above your nephew's needs. Shame on you. I deleted every message without responding. I thought surely after a few days they'd realize how crazy they were being and apologize. I was wrong. For 2 weeks, the calls and messages kept coming. Each one made me angrier than the last. The funny thing was, for the first time in years, I had completely peaceful weekends. Ashley didn't bring Tyler and Noah over like she usually did. Honestly, I was relieved. I could finally relax in my own house without worrying about kids tracking mud through my clean floors or accidentally breaking something. But my peace didn't last long. On Tuesday afternoon, I was in my office going over estimates for upcoming jobs when my secretary knocked on my door. Violet, your mother is here to see you. My heart sank. I should have known she wouldn't give up that easily. Send her in, I guess. My mom walked into my office wearing her sweetest smile, the one she used when she wanted something. She sat down in the chair across from my desk and folded her hands in her lap like we were having tea instead of a confrontation. I wanted to talk to you about the house situation. I think you're being a little hasty in your decision. Hasty? Mom, it's my house. I bought it, I paid for it, I live in it. There's no decision to make. But Violet, think about Chad and Ashley. They really need this. She gestured around my office. Look at all the success you've built. You could easily afford to buy another house. I stared at her in disbelief. Do you have any idea how hard I worked for this? I didn't go on vacation for 9 years. I drove the same beat-up truck, wore the same old clothes, ate ramen noodles for dinner so I could put every penny toward that mortgage. I know, sweetheart, but you're in a much better position than Chad and Ashley. They have children to think about. And what about me? What about what I want? What about the fact that I love my house and my garden? My mom's face got that stubborn look I remembered from childhood. Violet, you're being selfish. Family should help family. You should be generous because you've achieved so much. That word, selfish. They kept using it like it was some kind of weapon, like wanting to keep the thing I'd worked my entire adult life for made me a terrible person. Mom, I need you to leave. I stood up and walked to my office door. And you should be ashamed of yourself for playing favorites with your children like this. She gathered her purse and stood up, her face red with anger. You're making a big mistake, young lady. This family won't forget how you've acted. Good. Maybe then you'll leave me alone. She stormed out, her heels clicking angrily down the hallway. A week later, my phone started ringing with calls from relatives I barely talked to. My Aunt Ruth from 2 states over, my cousin Jeff who I hadn't seen in 5 years, even my great-uncle Walter who I'd only met at weddings and funerals. Violet, honey, your mother called me, Aunt Ruth said. She's very worried about you. She says you're not being very nice to your brother and his family. Did she tell you they want me to give them my house? There was a pause. Well, she mentioned that they need more space for the children. Would you give your house to someone else, Aunt Ruth? Another pause. Well, that's different. That's not the same situation at all. How is it different? She couldn't answer that question. None of them could. Cousin Jeff hung up on me when I asked him the same thing. Great-uncle Walter mumbled something about needing to go and ended the call. It was clear my mother had been calling everyone we were related to, spinning some story about how I was being cruel and selfish. She was trying to turn the whole family against me. The manipulation was unbelievable. 2 more weeks passed. I thought maybe they'd finally given up when the calls stopped coming. I was actually starting to feel normal again, focusing on my work and enjoying my house in peace. Then Saturday morning happened. I woke up to the sound of loud voices and truck engines outside my bedroom window. At first, I thought maybe one of my neighbors was moving, but the voices kept getting closer and louder. I threw on a robe and walked outside to see what was going on. What I saw made my blood run cold. There was a moving truck parked in my driveway. 2 guys in work clothes were unloading furniture in boxes, and standing in my front yard like she owned the place was Ashley, pointing at my house and giving the movers directions. The couch goes in the living room, obviously, she was saying. And be careful with those boxes, they have the kids' toys in them. Chad was there too, along with Tyler and Noah. The boys looked confused and a little scared, but Chad was just standing there with his arms crossed like this was perfectly normal. I marched over to Ashley, my heart pounding with rage. What the hell is going on here? She turned to me with this fake innocent expression. Oh, Violet. We're moving in. I hope you don't mind that we started early. Moving in? Are you completely insane? Chad walked over, trying to look calm and reasonable. Violet, don't make a scene. We talked about this. Just let us bring our stuff in and we can work out the details later. We didn't talk about anything. I told you no. This is my house. Ashley stepped closer to me, and I could see the manipulation in her eyes. Violet, we terminated our lease. We have nowhere else to go. She called the boys over. Tyler, Noah, come here. The kids walked over, looking uncomfortable. Violet, Ashley said in a loud, dramatic voice, surely you wouldn't dare kick your own nephews out into the street, would you? I looked at Tyler and Noah, then back at Ashley. She had this smug smile on her face, thinking she'd cornered me. But she'd made one big mistake. She'd underestimated me. I turned to the movers and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Excuse me, gentlemen. You're on private property without permission. This is illegal trespassing. If you don't leave immediately, I'm calling the police and you'll all be taken to the station. The movers stopped dead in their tracks. One of them looked at Chad. Hey man, you said this was your sister's place and she was okay with it. She is okay with it, Chad said quickly. Violet, stop being dramatic. I am not okay with it. I shouted. This is my house and you have no right to be here. The movers looked at each other nervously. Without another word, they started loading the furniture back onto the truck. No, wait! Ashley screamed at them. Don't listen to her. We paid you to move our stuff. But the movers weren't stupid. They could see this was a family dispute and they wanted no part of it. Within minutes, they had everything back on the truck. Ashley was furious. She started yelling at me, calling me selfish and heartless. Chad tried to grab my arm. Violet, be reasonable. We're your family. I pulled away from him. Get off my property. Now. Ashley wasn't done. She marched up to my front door and started kicking it, screaming about how unfair I was being. I'm calling the police right now, I said, pulling out my phone. You have 30 seconds to get off my property. That finally got through to them. Chad grabbed Ashley's arm and dragged her away from my door. They loaded the kids into their car and drove off, Ashley still yelling out the window at me. Half an hour later, my phone started ringing again. My parents, of course. I didn't answer. They left angry voicemails, but I deleted them without listening. That evening, I got a text from Chad. You owe us money for a new apartment. Because of you, we have nowhere to live. I actually laughed out loud when I read it. I texted back, from today on, I won't help you with anything. Not 1 cent, figure it out yourself. More angry messages came flooding in, but I deleted every single one without reading them. A couple weeks passed peacefully. I was working on a big landscaping project for a new shopping center when I came home one evening and saw something that made my heart stop. My beautiful garden had been destroyed. Plants were ripped out of the ground. Flowers were trampled. My carefully designed pathways were torn up. Someone had taken a shovel or something and just destroyed everything I'd worked so hard to create. I almost cried looking at the damage. Years of work, ruined. I had my suspicions about who did it, but I needed proof. I rushed inside to my laptop. I'd installed security cameras around my property a few years ago after some break-ins in the neighborhood. My family didn't know about them. I pulled up the footage from earlier that day, and there they were, Chad and Ashley, clear as day. The video showed them systematically destroying my garden, Ashley actually laughing as she pulled up my prize-winning roses. I uploaded the video to my phone and drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't call first. I just walked right in. The whole family was there, my parents, Chad, Ashley, and the kids. My mother looked up in surprise. Violet, what are you doing here? I could see Ashley trying not to smile. She was enjoying my anger. Someone destroyed my garden today, I said calmly. Ashley shrugged with fake innocence. Oh no, that's terrible. There are so many troublemakers around these days. Yes, there are, I agreed. That's why I'm going to the police to find these criminals. Especially since I have it all on video. I held up my phone and played the footage. You could clearly see Chad and Ashley's faces as they destroyed my property. The color drained out of both their faces. My parents stared at the screen in shock. I'm going to sue you both, I said. And I'm posting this video on social media so everyone can see what kind of people my relatives really are. Violet, please, my mother begged. Don't do this to the family. Don't do what? Don't seek justice for my destroyed property? Don't show people the truth about what they did? Chad finally spoke up. Violet, we can work this out. Don't involve the police. You have exactly 1 week to pay me $3,000 for the damage, I said. If you don't, I'm filing charges and posting this video everywhere. Everyone will know what you did. $3,000? Ashley gasped. We don't have that kind of money. Then you better find it. You had money to terminate your lease and hire movers. Figure it out. I walked out without another word. Exactly 7 days later, I received a bank transfer for $3,000 from Chad, along with a text message. We never want to see you again. I actually laughed. Like I wanted to see them either. It's been a couple months since all this happened. I used the money to restore my garden, and it's more beautiful than ever. My business is thriving, I'm making good money, and I finally have peace in my life. I heard through mutual friends that Chad and his family moved in with my parents. Apparently, they're all miserable, complaining about how cramped it is with 6 people in a 3-bedroom house. My parents are constantly stressed about the extra expenses, and Ashley is driving everyone crazy with her demands. But honestly, I don't care anymore. Sometimes I sit in my garden in the evening, watching the sunset and listening to the birds, and I think about how different things could have been if my family had just been happy for me. If they'd celebrated my success instead of trying to take it away. But then I realized something important, I'm better off without them. I'd rather be alone in my beautiful house than surrounded by people who only see me as a source of money and free stuff. Family isn't just about blood. Real family celebrates your victories, supports your dreams, and loves you without trying to take what's yours. Sometimes the hardest lesson we learn is that the people who should love us most are capable of hurting us deepest. But here's what I've learned, standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Your dreams matter. Your hard work matters. And you don't owe anyone your success just because you share DNA with them. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding strength when those who should support you try to take advantage instead. Remember, the most beautiful gardens are the ones you fight to protect.